Hello everybody, it's August the 21st. It's now been 6 weeks since we set our air layer, and it's time to cut it down today. As you can see, the roots have wrapped around. It's now time to move on to our next step. So before we start our process, we want to make sure we have a couple of items ready to go. We have a box, we have a tree pot. You could use a 1 gallon or a 4x9 tree pot. I have a little brush here just for demonstrational purposes. I do like to recycle some of my old pots, and you want to make sure that you do clean them up real good. Last thing you want is some pathogens, ruining your air layer. So you want to make sure you start off with a really nice clean pot. I have some seed starting mix, any kind of soil medium will work. I have a bowl of water that we're going to use to dilute some of this fertilizer. You can use seaweed fertilizer, any kind of fertilizer will work. Just use half strength, which will help the roots. I have a set of pruners that I'm going to sharpen, as well as a marker to mark my variety. The last thing you want to do is have an unknown variety after working so hard with your air layer. I'm also going to include alcohol, rubbing alcohol, to clean off your pruners. You want to wipe them clean, let them soak for a little bit, wipe them off. This will help prevent spread any type of viruses, like fig mosaic virus from tree to tree. All right, so we're going to go ahead and remove the foil that we placed earlier. Remove our clip. The thing just fell apart. And you want to grab your air layer securely. You don't want to grab it here, snip it off, the thing's just going to fall off. So make sure you grab it with care. And you want to get as close as you can to the edge. And that's it. You want to go with an angle as well, an angle cut. That way if it rains, the water will just bead off. You don't want just a flat cut. And then we'll go ahead and take our air layer inside and get it started. So now that we removed our air layer, we don't want to wait too long. We want to act fast. We want to make sure that we get this into a solution. The faster you act, the better results you're going to get. You don't want to just snip this guy, leave it on the counter, and just walk away for a whole day. So first thing we want to do is remove the rubber bands and snip off the zip tie as well. We're going to use our pruners to do that. So we'll get the pruners and snip off the zip tie, like so. Remove the rubber bands as well. So that's what we have at this point. And now we need to delicately remove the bag from the air layer. Now, this is where the box comes into play. Last thing you want is a bunch of soil, a bunch of mess on the floor. That's why we have our trusty box. And at this point, you also want to remove some of the leaves. Generally, these guys will just fall off on their own. So I'm going to prune some of them off, and it will help the root system establish itself, so it doesn't focus too much energy on maintaining these leaves. I'm gonna leave some of the figs in hope that they ripen, which will be another interesting video. Yeah, these guys are right around the corner near ripening, so we'll see if they can do their thing. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna actually cut off the little knot that we made for our air layer, and that's gonna help me be able to remove the bag. So now that I've done that, it should make it a little bit easier to remove. And since we have a good root system, the root ball should remain intact. The soil should remain intact for the most part. Once I put it in the solution, we'll lose some of the soil, but that's okay. We're putting it in another set of clean soil, as you can see here. So at this point, we set our air layer down into the box, and we can start on our solution. Just a couple of drops will do. just enough to provide some nutrients to the root system. And I'm always lacking a spoon or some kind of stick. So we're gonna stir it by hand, like so. So as you can see, some of the soil fell off, but I still have my roots intact. And in fact, you can see some spots that are wanting to root already, so that's gonna help once we put it in its pot. So we'll grab our air layer and place it inside of the solution. And you wanna let it soak. Let it soak for a couple of minutes. And we're gonna multitask while we're letting that soak. We're gonna grab our empty box, our tree pot, and our soil. We're gonna fill it up about a quarter to halfway place. So now I have about a halfway mark right there. And I'll give it a little tap to make sure it settles in so I don't have too many air pockets. And this guy's been soaking for about a good 5 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and grab it and place it carefully inside of our tree pot. You may have a root or two that are sticking up like this. You just want to gently let it set in. Then fill this up with soil to the top. So I have my pot labeled Coltodon Hagmantina. I marked it more than once to ensure that it's not wiped off. I don't forget what variety this is. And the reason that we filled up the pot halfway is that you don't want to set your air layer to the very bottom, because as you're watering it, the water always collects at the bottom and you can get root rot fairly easily. You also want enough room for the roots to grow down. So by that point, it'll be well established and you will not run into any, issues with root rot. So right now, the roots are barely sitting right here, a little bit higher, and then the gaps have been filled up with soil. So I want to give myself enough space here to also be able to water it and not allow the soil to just run off. So you want at least, a good depth of your fingertip. So I'm gonna actually give it a little tap again to make sure that the soil settles down. And see, I have plenty of room to be able to water it without the soil running over. So I set the pot inside of another tree pot to give me some kind of support. I don't want it to tip over while I'm trying to water it. I'm also gonna get my watering can and set it right here so I can fill in the solution. And anything that's lost will go into my tree pot, which will benefit. So nothing lost here. So grab our watering can and just gently water it. I'll give it some time for it to penetrate, to drain out through the bottom. The soil, you can tell, is made of mostly peat moss or cocoa coir, which it takes a while to retain moisture, retain the water, that is. So from here, I'll just pat it down a little bit around the center, make sure that it's set, get rid of any air pockets. You don't want to push down too hard and break some of the root system. I'm just making sure that the base can stay in the center without leaning over too much. And I'm gonna let this drain out a little bit more. And here about 5 minutes or so, I'm gonna move it to a shaded spot. All right, and we're now ready to put this in a nicely shaded area. For this, we want full shade. This is an area that I use to propagate chili peppers, and it will not get any type of sun. It will get the heat that it needs to extend the root system of this air layer. So we're gonna make this a little interesting. This tree currently has 5 figs. I personally feel that 2 of them, the smaller ones, will fall off. And I'm gonna leave it up to you guys to decide. We'll hold a contest, whoever guesses correctly. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Which of these 3 will ripen? all three, only two, only one, or none. I want you guys to comment and post your selection, but also include, for the tiebreaker, the day that we will see roots come out of the bottom of the pot. So 1, determine how many figs, if any, will ripen. And 2, what date will the root system appear at the bottom of the pot. And in order to enter this contest, you want to make sure that you follow along and also like all 3 videos that were concerning this Airlayer. And I will cycle back with the winner. Thank you guys.